Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool. So, do you know about medieval burial rites?
The Muffin Man?
No, medieval burial rites.
That lives on train. Some, like you stick needles behind their eyes and you tie their hands behind their back, face them face down or their butt face up so they can't crawl away from the
So, Christian medieval burial rites. Which are still slightly, pagan.
Like, during the Vampire Wars, I believe you were supposed to cut off their head and stick it behind their butt, or cremate them or something like that?
No, you do not cremate people.
Okay.
You never cremate someone. Cremation is a big no-no.
Okay.
So if you want to punish a sinner,
yeah,
you bury them on a crossroad.
Okay.
But you can do worse than burying someone on a crossroads. You can cut off their head and bury them on the crossroads, or you can cremate them and bury them on a crossroad, or scatter the remains at a crossroad. And so the big thing with the crossroad is basically if you're buried there, one is unsanctified ground. There's going to be a bunch of travelers going through it.
Yeah.
And basically you'll never find your way home. You'll never find your way to heaven. So it stops you from being a vengeful ghost that haunts people because you're at a crossroad. If your head's cut off, then you don't know where to go. If you're burned, then you have no body in reality. Like, cremating is just awful. You don't want to do cremating. But the crossroads is also a really nasty thing to do. So there's a problem, though, from crossroads, which is crossroads are where the dead come back.
Yeah.
You meet the dead at crossroads.
Because it's the space between life and death, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you bury people at crossroads basically to trap them there. That's the whole thing of a witch being hung in a gibbet, a metal cage at crossroads. Or you bury a witch at crossroads as she has trouble coming back to life.
Right.
So, if you live in a village without a church, without sanctified ground, and someone dies, you can't just bury them, you have to bury them in a church or at sanctified ground. Now, you have a problem, which is no one wants to be around a corpse. So you can't travel on the main roads with a corpse, because that's bad already. But also, you can't bring a corpse over a crossroads that doesn't have all its funeral rites. So, how do you deal with this?
By boat, maybe?
No, Lich roads. So there's this special roads called Lich Road, which were straight roads from villages that would lead you to a place where there'd be sanctified ground. And a Lich Road did not have a single cross road on. Lich roads, or Lich paths, were straight roads through the woods. They were hidden paths. They also had Lich stones on them, and Lich huts. Or Lich houses.
Is that where you could just stay on the journey, or?
So, you're traveling with it, and let's say it's a multiple day travel, you can't put the body on the ground. That's a big no-no. Because if you put the body on the ground, you're putting it in the ground from dirt you were to dirt you will return.
Right.
Dust to dust, ashes, dust to dust. You can't let him return to the dirt if it's not consecrated, because then he can't find his way to heaven. So, you need to stop for a night. There's a Lich stone. You put the corpse on the Lich stone. Or, it's a little bit more fancy road, you put them in a Lich house. And it's on a slab specifically designed for them to go on. Then you take the corpse and you continue traveling with them. Till you get to sanctified ground, they get buried, they get blessed, and they can go to heaven. And learning about this, I found it absolutely fascinating how pagan and superstitious and not in the Bible this Christian belief was. And this was all throughout Europe. The Lich roads were incredibly important, and Lich yards are weird. So, a Lich yard and a graveyard are very different places. A graveyard is outside a church. It is where you need to bury someone. There is the church grounds. You can bury people there. You can bury people in crypts. What a Lich yard is let's say you have a massive battlefield, a bunch of people died, and you simply cannot get all these people to the right place. Luckily, you have a cleric with you on the battlefield. And so the cleric goes, all right, we need 4 corner posts. We're going to put them there. We're going to give all these people their last rites. We're going to bury them. And this place is sanctified ground by me, because I'm a cleric or a priest or whatever in this area. And that's a Lich yard.
But then a pagan comes out of the woods and says, "Nuh-uh, my devil beam can go through Lich yard force fields."
Yes. And Lich yards are incredibly creepy places because they don't have any Christian juju in them.
Right. It's just a bunch of corpses in a
buried place that's been sanctified so people can get to heaven.
Right.
And all the important people are brought home out of the Lich yard. And a lot of times, priests could make quite a bit of money off burying people. And so a Lich yard is basically a selfless priest devoting a ton of time and resources to sanctifying a huge amount of dead people to make sure they can get to heaven.
Why does it take them time? Can't they just, you're sanctified?
You have to give people their last rites.
Oh, so you have to go to each person.
Yeah, and the last rites is a prayer. So it's a specific prayer, and you have to do it for each person. You have to bury them in a certain way. You have to say the songs over their body.
This is why the West needs to import more Hindus, because Hindus are great at religious technology, and they'd come up with like a bullhorn where you could just say the prayer into the bullhorn and be like, from dust to dust and ashes to ashes, and then the whole field is sanctified at once.
Apparently, Muslim prayer has points.
Oh yeah?
So if you pray at home,
Yeah.
which is you get 1 point.
Yeah.
If you pray at a mosque, you get like 3 points. If you pray at like the Blue Mosque or like one of the significant mosques, you get like 10 or 20 points. If you pray at the most important mosque, I can't remember what it's
Mecca?
called. No, Mecca's the stone.
Oh, okay.
There's a mosque. It's the most important mosque. If you pray there, you get 100 points. If you pray at Mecca, you get 1,000.
Oh.
Like those aren't the exact points, but
Yeah.
they actually like the equivalent amount of prayers at Mecca.
Yeah.
You'd have to do 1,000 prayers at home
Right.
compared to one prayer at Mecca.
Right. So it's more efficient if you can manage it.
But like, I just found the Lich Yards and the Lich Roads and the Lich Stones.
Well, the Lich Stones sound to me kind of like
The Lich Stones are really cool.
But I think it's very much a case of, like, you didn't understand the point of the Bible. Like, it's like, the dust you will return is saying eventually you will fade. It's not saying you can't go back once or twice before you... Like, the journey doesn't have to end right there. You can have a couple...
But if the body's on the ground,
Yeah.
it can get up again and kill you.
But it doesn't say that anywhere in the rest of the...
No, but there's the pagan beliefs.
Yeah.
And also, another really important thing about Lich Roads, I forgot about this, is fairies. So,
like boats or like the little pixie things?
Pixies.
Okay.
Fairies in the woods. Because, so, one of the problems with Lich Roads is another reason you had them is, as I said, bringing a corpse along a common road. People are like, oh, there's a corpse, gross, I don't want to be near that. Superstition, you're scared of the corpse. So Lich Roads also often were back roads that had to go through forests. And they're in thick woods because it's old English woods. And of course there's fairies in there. And so fairies are going to mess with you.
Yeah.
And so a really important thing about traveling on the Lich Road doubly was you couldn't do it at night. Like after dark you had to stop.
Right.
So if you got to a Lich Stone and there's still half the day left, but you know the next one's going to be a day away, you had to stop then.
Because goblins might get you.
Goblins might get you, the corpse might come back to life because you're traveling with it after dark. Fairies are going to mess with you. You have to be carrying, the people traveling on the Lich Road are covered in charms to ward off fairy, undead, evil spirits.
Those, so we mentioned pixie just to get the idea across, but pixies were not evil. They were actually a very benevolent creature. But
No, it would have been goblins messing with you.
like hobgoblins and goblins and maybe witches.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure, but I imagine witches could be in there.
Yeah.
Or like
Elves.
will-o-wisps, elves, that sort of thing. Yeah. Dobbies.
Yeah.
All the variants of goblin, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, elves are quite nasty, actually.
They're I don't.
And you might have some elemental spirits west of you. You might have some sylphs or gnomes or salamanders.
Would the elemental ones mess with?
Maybe not on the Lich Road.
Yeah.
But elemental spirits you had to respect. Like blacksmiths had a hell of a time dealing with them because they had to deal with all four.
Undyne is the fourth, the water one. It's called an Undyne.
Yeah, you had to deal with all four of them. And right pain as a blacksmith to deal with all four elemental fairies.
Keep them all off on their toes.
Yeah.
So,
But something else, this is from one video I learned about Lich Roads and I read about them. There's apparently another thing called a leper road.
which was just to keep the lepers away from the rest of the people?
Yeah, so lepers, you had to let them go on pilgrimage because everyone deserved a chance to go on pilgrimage, and maybe going on pilgrimage could cure a leper. But you had to keep them from everywhere. So there's literal roads and inns. There's leper inns. So there's leper roads and leper inns.
All the
And the defenders of the leper roads were the Knights of Lazarus.
Oh, how did the Knights Hospitaller would guard the rest of the pilgrims, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you're saying the Knights of Lazarus would guard the lepers.
Yeah.
So my question, it's not cheap suit of armor, horse, whatever you might have. Maybe you don't own a horse, right? But you're still a knight, right? Like, what are you doing for employment? Like, how can you afford food and shelter and?
So the pilgrims would pay you. They would pay you passage. There's pilgrim markets in places. There's pilgrim villages that you get money from. And so how it would work with the lepers is lepers were given alms where they traveled to, and the church would pay the knights specifically of St. Lazarus to do their job.
And were people just richer back in the day, or what? Like, if I went on, I go to work, right, and I say, hey, I'm gonna just walk across the country for 2 months, or maybe even a year, right? First of all, I don't have the funds to pay for the whole year, probably, like shelter, food, and everything like that. And then my boss would be like, hey, don't come back because,
Well, so it's interesting because there's a lot of scams that actually people going on pilgrimage and they weren't true pilgrims.
Yeah.
And you can get a huge amount of rights going on pilgrimage. You can stay at pilgrim inns. You can go to churches and claim pilgrim rights and they have to look after you. You can go to sites and they'll like, oh, here's your complimentary pilgrim bread. It's not going to be like luxurious, but it's going to be a way to get away with things. So if you want to go on pilgrimage, you would actually have to go to your local church and say to your preacher, can I go on pilgrimage? And he'd look at you and go, you don't need to go on pilgrimage. Or he'd go, yeah, you're in spiritual distress, or it's your time of life to go on pilgrimage. And he would write you basically a pilgrim's license.
Right.
It'd be a letter of recommendation from your church with his specific seal, which would be a wax seal of that church or prior, whatever. And then you would have to show your paperwork at the roads, at the places, to receive the benefits of being a pilgrim.
Imagine you're in like Barcelona, right?
And so, as to the money thing, people were a lot poorer, but also everything was cheaper and expenses were a lot lower.
Doesn't sound poor to me.
It's a weird thing. It's a weird mix. And so you're not going to get brilliant food. But in Kingdom Come, have you seen gameplay of it or played it all?
I've seen a little bit of gameplay.
So there's this weird thing where you can basically, if you're hungry, you can carry food in your inventory and you can eat it and it'll give you benefits. And Henry needs to eat or he starts getting debuffed. Also, every single village just has like this pot of like pottage or oats or gruel. And Henry can just go and eat at them. And they're just like in these open communal spaces. And so during that period of time, that was actually a thing, is people just cook food and leave it out. And it's like, oh, you're hungry, go eat at the gruel.
No, I mean, that's...
And so you're not going to starve to death, but you're eating like meal. You're eating literal meal.
Because I was thinking about this in the shower today. Good place to think. And I was thinking, okay, let's say you're a peasant, and apparently you can afford to go on this pilgrimage, right?
Yeah.
So, but let's say there's still like a 10% chance of starving.
And you're going to get killed by bandits.
Yeah. Something happens, right?
Yeah.
Just 10% chance of bandits or starvation, whatever it might be. But you have your, I don't know, your acre of land, your 10 acres of land, whatever it is that you own. You've got your...
Well, you're a serf on them. You probably don't know.
But that is like, you are the person... I don't really care about ownership so much as like, there are...
It's yours.
Like, my neighbor isn't playing loud music at night that's like, keeping, like I've got like an acre of space around me in all directions.
Yeah.
You've got your horse or your ox, or maybe you don't, but you've got this little bit of land here. But there's a 90% chance of starvation, right?
Yeah.
And you're just some medieval peasant, okay? And then the next day, Mr. Deere comes up to you, your neighbor John Deere, and he's like, I've invented a tractor. Tractor can do the work of 20 men, all right? And you're like, okay, cool. So now you have a tractor. And now you can do the work for yourself and 19 others of your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And now they don't have to do work. So okay. So now before there's you were only making 90% amount of the food you need. Yeah. Now you're making 18 times the amount of food you need.
Yeah.
So now you have 18 times the food you need. So I guess you can't have 19 of your neighbors laid off, but you can have 17 of your neighbors not working. But of course, someone's got to make the tractors, right?
Yeah.
And someone's got to mine the material for the tractor and mine the oil. So maybe it comes down to, if everyone has a tractor, they still have to work like a day or two every week. You have to go to work like 2 days a week. But then Mr. Miner comes up and he's like, I've invented a way to mine the materials more efficiently. We only need half the workforce for the mines. Yeah. So you're like, okay, so now we only need to work 1 day a week. Excellent. So then my question is, if we can do like 1,000 times the work for like half the effort of a medieval peasant, why are we all crammed into little apartments and working like 40 hours plus a week?
Because there's a lot more people.
But those people can be doing 40 times the work as well.
Yeah.
And so my theories, I have a couple theories. I've got my communist theory, which is that the rich people took all the wealth and now they're flying around in space instead of us not working, which is one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Though my problem with that, and it's always been a problem, I haven't quite understood the argument against billionaires, is billionaires, if they don't spend their money, they don't have any money at all, right? Yeah. Because money isn't food, it isn't land, it isn't value. So they don't have any at all. Okay, so, but billionaires are spending their money. They're going to space and stuff. Yeah. So obviously they are spending money. Yeah, but if they buy a rocket to go to space, a bunch of rocket engineers now have money. And those rocket engineers are going to go to the movies. And now a bunch of actors have money. And those actors are going to go to the grocery store. And now a bunch of grocers have money. So the billionaires shouldn't really be preventing everyone else from having things. That's just what it seems to be in my mind.
Yeah,
right?
But people think of billionaires as Scrooge McDuck sitting on a pile of gold.
Yeah, but if they're sitting on a pile of gold, then that's fine. Because the only problem is if they're sitting on a pile of like clothes and food, right? Like that's the only time, and land. Like that's the only time they're really good. And now Bill Gates is buying up like thousands of acres of land. So there is problems with land, but I think the other resources should be fairly accessible.
Yeah.
Even if the billionaires are buying up everything. I guess what they could be doing is like buying up so much food and then not using it, or using it so wastefully that it's raising the price of food for everyone else, so that they can't afford it as easily, but the billionaire doesn't care.
Yeah, well, so one of the things quite literally is just work competition, bringing people in to do jobs, because after the Black Death, that was like one of the biggest movers in history for human freedom. Was 60% of Scotland died during that.
Yeah, so you now got like double the pay for your work.
And you can choose who to work for. And
well, that's the thing though, right? Because in theory, this is my second theory, like tied into what you're saying. If we bring in a bunch of immigrants, you said, now there's more competition. But those immigrants are still doing 40 times the work of a medieval peasant. So there should still be far more wealth. So my theory on that is just something that we haven't quite, or I haven't maybe, come to grips with, which is that different parts of the world have totally different levels of technology and poverty.
Yeah.
And the cost of bringing India out of poverty is the wealth of the entire rest of the world. And then the cost of bringing China out of poverty is the cost of the entire rest of the world. And so once Africa, which is getting there, is out of poverty, then the entire world will start rising in wealth together, and then we will finally be rich, that the promise of the Industrial Revolution will finally come true. Maybe that's one of the reasons?
Well, there's more luxuries to spend things on, more money to spend things on, and taxes versus a medieval peasant are ridiculously high.
Yeah, but those taxes in theory are benefiting us, right? So it's like, okay, let's say the taxes aren't benefiting us, right? Then what are they doing? They're limiting the money supply, which means it should be keeping down inflation. So like, I don't care, like money shouldn't matter, right? Money shouldn't matter, because the only thing that I care about is my food, my house, my clothes, my land, right? Like, I don't care how much money I have. If you gave me a penny a week, but I had a mansion in 100-acre woods with all the food and clothes and I could ever want, so I don't care, right? Give me that penny a week, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if I can buy like a car with that penny, so be it. Like, I don't care. But, and I've heard also the argument that, well, now you have Netflix and cell phones and computers, and you're doing this podcast and you can listen to YouTube, so therefore you have way more expenses than you would have had as a medieval peasant. I would give that all up for, like, my own 100-acre lot. Like, I don't feel wealthier because the 100-acre lot is not an option.
Yeah.
I don't have the option. I'm like, okay, you know what? I won't listen to YouTube. And then I'll have because the thing is, I can't actually calculate that. My internet costs me about $230 a month, right? So, okay, I stopped spending $230 a month. Can I now afford a place that is 40 times as big because of all the advancements of the Industrial Revolution? No, I can't. If I don't buy the new cell phone every year, can I now afford to work half as much per week?
Well, why you can't afford land is all those greedy farmers are sitting on.
Yeah, the thing that we need. I guess that is the one thing that is actually making us poor, is that if there's more people, the only limited resource, even in an increased industrial society, is still land.
Yeah.
And those people still need to be fed. So land is becoming more valuable the more people there are, even if they are producing more each person. But that means, and I've always thought this, that like everyone's like, oh no, Canada's population is going to halve every generation. So like the world once had a population of like 100 million people back in the medieval age, and they got along just fine. Like human race didn't die out.
There used to be 60 million.
Yeah, like the human there. I think our DNA suggests there was at one point like 15,000 or something.
Yes.
Because of maybe a volcano just wiping out most of the people.
No, it was murder.
Just like murder killing that many.
Yes.
Until there was only a couple thousand left.
Yes, it is actually terrifying. Like that period of time, they've looked at the mass graves and the bodies and stuff, and the calculation is 80% of death during that period was murder.
Oh, yeah. And I would always, like, archaeologists, they have theories, right? But if that is the case, like that's... Because I have also seen, it's pretty obvious, I think, based on the evidence that, like, the Asians came over to North America around the year 1000 and, like, conquered North America, basically. I think that's pretty obvious. Like the western half of North America, the eastern half resisted because they had bigger civilizations and it was rainier, so their weapons of the Asians didn't work. Yeah. Because sinew-backed bows don't work in wet climates. Yeah. So it was kind of like War of the Worlds, where you have all these Mongols like attacking the like the Iroquois, and then they're ready to shoot them with their super bows, and then the bows just dissolve in the rain, and they're like, I'm melting. Yeah. I assume that's how it happened. Yeah. but that isn't mainstream consensus at all about the navigation. But there's like graves, there's weapons in like a yearly pattern. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm also just like, that's so extreme for me. I'm like, I need to have like 5 million sources and to be there in my time machine, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like 80% of people killed each other off. But either way, population was reduced, and either way is horrifying, but people survived, right?
Yeah.
Is the point. And so we don't need 8 billion people on Earth. And I'm not saying we should kill off people. I'm just saying we don't need to keep importing people to keep our population numbers artificially high. It's like, why don't we let the thing that... Back when I was in school, everyone was worrying about overpopulation. Like, oh no, if only we could have a sustainable population of like 50 million people, or if only, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And now it's like, we need to bring every other person in the world into our country so that our GDP is competitive with the other nations. Because if our GDP falls behind, we'll have less buying power on the world global market. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's like, just make everything ourselves. Like, and then, like, why is money relative? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, if I can grow a cauliflower, let's say, right? But the Indians grow 2 cauliflowers, I don't starve. I still have a cauliflower.
Yeah, well...
Like, well, that is decent, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah, Canada can provide food for itself completely. Like, we don't actually need to import food.
But money shouldn't be relative to the other players on the world stage.
Yeah.
The only reason that happens is if your economy is so tied with other nations that you need to buy like everything from them.
So, here's something interesting. Do you know one of the main ways that governments borrow money?
Bonds?
Yeah. Do you know what a bond is?
The government saying, I promise I'll give it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so companies buy those bonds, countries buy each other's bonds.
Yeah.
And you can leverage debt to do things. But then you can leverage debt versus yourself. So you can buy your own bonds. So you can hold your own debt, basically. And then, even though you're technically in debt, you are also holding the assets. And so you can say that actually, no, I'm not in debt, my money is 0, and I'm getting more stuff for it.
There's actually a joke about that. I don't know if you've heard it, but there's 2 economists walking down the road, right?
Yeah.
You see a pile of dog poop. Yeah. And one of the economists says, bet you $200 you won't eat that dog poop. And the other economist is like, oh yeah, and he picks it up and he shoves it in his face and eats all the dog poop. And it's like, oh wow, okay, gives him the $200. Yeah. They're walking down the road, and then the economist that won the bet, still got a bit of dog poop around his lips, He sees another pile of dog poop, and he says to the economist that didn't eat it, he's like, I bet you $200 you won't eat that dog poop. And so then the first economist goes over and he eats the dog poop, and the second economist hands him back the $200. Wait, we just have the same amount of money, and we both ate dog poop. And then the second economist is like, no. We contributed $400 of value to the economy.
Yeah.
We did a good thing today.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, no. So I think there's a lot of money games going on, so we're not actually getting richer as well.
No, I watched a video on like Canada's money games yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Sorry, what? This is just to make yourself look good. You're not actually doing anything. Like, you're not achieving anything with this. You're just making yourself look good so you can leverage stuff. But it's all an illusion.
But the thing is, I guess my takeaway from all that is I'm not convinced that I'm richer than like a post-Black Death peasant, Like,
yeah.
I'm not convinced I'm actually richer than one of those guys. Because if they're going on these pilgrimages, like, I can't go on a pilgrimage. Like, I mean, maybe they're just accepting more, right? They're like, you know what? I'll have one. Well, it changes because they'll be like, I'll have one pair of clothes. It'll get tattered and worn down, and I'll be hungry a lot of the time. And like, maybe that's the difference, right? They just come.
Well, your fields will also be fallow. No one will be farming them.
Yeah, but I would also say to that peasant who's trying to one-up me in this game, right, that if I had one pair of clothes, they'd fall apart in the first week. You're lucky that you can have them for the whole pilgrimage and they'll fall apart. But our clothes are so poorly made, I'll need like 6 pairs of clothes. I mean, you can get better clothes, but I think what's happened is not that things have become cheaper, it's just the things that we have had a worse version get made for cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can still go to a tailor and get a suit that'll last you for a long time, I'm sure. And you can get some really well-made shoes or whatever.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff we buy is just like garbage that falls apart.
Yeah, well, also, people back in the day would repair their clothes
And for the
and they would repair their own shoes. They'd go to cobblers, get them repaired. You would fix things when they got damaged.
But now they're also made, like, good luck repairing a shoe with 6 layers of impact foam and, like,
yes.
like, it's like, how do you repair that? But I will say for the record, just for anyone listening, my previous pair of shoes lasted me 10 years. They were amazing. They were made by Merrill. They were called Proteus 1 shoes. They were amazing. They lasted 10 years. I got a Proteus 2 because the Proteus 1 they don't make anymore. So I got Proteus 2 shoes after because I was like, these shoes lasted me 10 years through hard, like, I was taking them through swamps. I stabbed them with a pitchfork. Like, I was treating these hard, and they lasted me 10 years. Proteus 2 fell apart in about 2 years.
Yeah.
So, I think even like the good stuff is like you can get better stuff, but when they make something too good, the company goes, "Oh no,
We're not going to be able to sell it.
We're not going to sell it more," so they make it worse.
So here's another question for you. So I give you every single part required to build an outhouse.
Yeah.
And the tools to do it.
Yeah.
Can you build me an outhouse?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I give you all the parts required to build a toilet and the tools to do it. Can you build me a toilet?
I mean, it depends how. Like, if do I have to like fire the porcelain myself and like?
No, you have all the pieces. Like the wood for the outhouse.
Yeah. I could. I think with a bit of trial and error, I might be able to manage a toilet.
Yeah. So now I give you the tools needed, but you have to gather the resources to build a house. Can you build me out?
Probably.
Now I give you the tools required for a toilet.
Yeah, probably not a toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a medieval peasant could actually do all the things for themselves.
Yeah. But they also, there's also like you can't have outhouses anymore really too.
No.
Like there's because I think partly too many people. Like if everyone has an outhouse.
Yeah, well, even then, so what instead of outhouses, even back in the old times of London, you had the nightmen, night sailors, and so the whole thing of like watch out and people
like the gong farmers.
Yeah, tossing their piss out the window. You wouldn't do that. That was a bad idea. What you would do is you would have your piss pot and you'd leave it outside at night, and you would have your night soil pot or dung pot, whatever. Then in the morning, the dung farmers would come along. They'd collect that and they'd bring it to their gong farm, and they would mix things and mash things up and do a huge amount of work with everyone's unmentionables. They'd take compost, they'd take waste, they would grab the corpse of a dog off a street, and they'd turn that all into fertilizer, and then they'd sell it to farmers.
So that actually answers my question, I think. The answer is that if there is 1 million people in all of Britain, right, you can dig your own outhouse hole, you can have a wood stove sending smoke into the air with green wood getting tossed into it, you can cut down trees to make a cabin for yourself, right?
Yeah.
If you have 50 million in Britain and you do that, the air will be so polluted you can't breathe, the streets will be disgusting with flies, and you will have third thing as well.
Yeah.
So the problem is just population. Like it is just like we have become poorer through regulation needed in order to live with more people. Because if we didn't have, because in theory, I could still dig my own household and I could have a wood stove that I can maintain on myself, right? But then like that was actually a problem with Whitehorse. In winter, it had the lowest air quality on Earth in the district of Riverdale.
Yeah.
Because everyone had a wood stove and it was the most densely populated part of the Yukon.
Yeah.
So it would like choke the air to be the worst air quality in the world. And so they had to ban wood stoves and regulate. I'm not sure if you can have them now, but
they do have them.
But they had to regulate, like you can only have this kind of wood stove, which is more expensive, and you
burn this kind of wood.
Yeah, so they had to regulate everything pretty heavily, and also they pushed people pretty far away from wood stove.
Yeah.
And so regulations make it possible to live with other people, but they also make you poor.
Yeah.
And so I think that is kind of the answer, is actually just the regulations needed for people to live together make us poor. And that's why we don't see the gains of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And that's why we all live in little apartments like mice in little dens and write a manifesto and live in cabin in the woods.
Send bombs to a...
No, that's not a way to do it. It doesn't do anything. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to force all the politicians to live in apartment complexes. That'll show far more evil. Because once they start feeling it, then they'll have to... Well, there's nothing they can do except not worry about the population so much. Just like... I guess the solution, just armchair, like drunk late night at a party solution for the world solution, is you stop immigration or you lower it massively. You don't worry about fertility rates. You even celebrate low fertility rates until your population has reached like 1 million people-ish, like a fairly low number. Although a country like Canada, it's even harder because if we don't have a certain level of population, because Canada isn't meant to be lived in, everything falls apart because you actually need enough people to maintain the ridiculous infrastructure we have. That's another thing, I guess. People aren't living in the Fertile Crescent anymore, so it's harder.
Yes.
It's more expensive to live. But maybe that's the thing you do is you just lower...
Yeah, like a different way to view poorness is basically the vast amount of people are living either in situations where they can't produce their own resources for themselves, such as farming, or they're living basically in exozone, which you need extreme things to make it so you can survive.
Which is, it kind of makes, in a little way, right? Like, obviously there's hardships, but you compare someone living, like, you see the videos of the poor kid living in Africa, right?
Yeah.
Versus, the rich person in Norway or something, right?
Yeah.
But there is something that isn't ever talked about, because obviously there is hardships on the poor kid in Africa, but the African kid is living in paradise, and the Norwegian person is living in hell.
Like, if you took that poor kid in Africa and didn't give them anything, and you dropped them in Norway, they're dead.
Yeah. But if you took everything from the Norwegian person and put them in Africa, there's food, there's warmth, there's like, like they have paradise there, basically.
That happened. They built a town.
Oh,
No, there was, I can't remember what it was, but it was with Norwegians and it was part of Africa. Whereas basically, these guys moved to Africa and they basically started with nothing.
Yeah.
And they built a really well-functioning town.
And that's just because Africa is such a... I mean, Africa's also a very dangerous country.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, warm, prosperous, tons of animals and food, like trees, plants, everything. Whereas there's, like, no food, there's no animals, and it's freezing.
Well, actually, there's that city in Africa. It's in South Africa. Callum, who he does... I think his name is Acadian Secretary on YouTube. He does travels to different parts of the world. And he traveled to South Africa, which is, they have a town, it's a walled town in South Africa, which only Afrikaans people are allowed to live in. So...
It's like the Dutch...
The Dutch-British fusion people.
Yeah.
They're only allowed to live in there. You have to speak Afrikaans to live there. Like, they can have tourists that speak English. And so they still pay tax to the government. However, they have rules, which is basically you're only allowed to hire people in the town to do your job.
Yeah.
And so you have to, like, pay them fair wages. And they have their own currency, the town they use, which is only works in that town. And it's like this hyper-capitalist Ayn Randian utopia town.
Enclave thing.
Yeah, it's this enclave, which is a walled town.
So yeah, back to my paradise, I guess.
Yeah.
Paradise in quotation marks. You really lower immigration down, so your population starts dropping like crazy, right? Because you don't have replacement. And then you need to produce everything yourself so that you're not competing with the global market. And then I just realized this is exactly what Hitler said Weimar Republic needed to do to fix itself. But was he wrong?
You're basically Hitler.
Well, he did other things too, right? But because I'm saying let it happen naturally. Just stop trying to fight the natural forces trying to fix the country and just let it happen.
Well,
right?
One of my big things which I think about with populations is like humans are a part of nature.
Yeah.
As much as we want to say, oh, you're subjugating nature or we're not a part of nature, you're part of the natural world.
Yeah.
And populations in animals and species have booms and busts. Like, look at hares right now. Hares are absolutely exploding here. They're like chewing on everything. They're at the crest of their population wave.
I saw the most hares I've ever seen in my life. There was like 12 in one viewing. Like I could see them all at once.
Yeah. Now you go into any part of the woods and you'll be able to see where they chewed on branches and trees and like there's hares everywhere.
But if you're on like a power line where they're at the edges, you see so many. It's crazy.
And so in 2 more years, because this is how a cycle works, we're going to see more foxes and coyotes than we've ever seen because their population is going to explode.
Yeah.
The hare population after this year is going to start declining. Then the hares are going to go on a massive decline because there's loads of foxes and coyotes and hawks. But the foxes and coyotes population will then follow the hare's population. Populations in the natural world literally do this oscillating bell curve. Whereas, what's oscillating sine wave? Or is it just a sine wave?
Yes.
Yeah. So populations follow a sine wave. And I think humans and human civilization actually has a sine wave. It's just really, really long. It takes a really long time because a generation of human, like sure we have babies every year, but a generation of humans is literally a 40 to 60 year process.
But also the more humans there are, the more there are to extend what they can sustain. So they kind of like self-sustain their...
Yeah. And so now we probably actually hit the top of a sine wave and we're going down again. But everyone's panicking because their whole civilization is based on climbing up the sine wave.
I think I've heard, I could be wrong, but I think even India now has like stalled out and it's just like Pakistan and Nigeria basically doing all the population stuff.
Yeah. And so I feel like we actually have to accept that populations go down and we have to figure out a better way to manage population going down than add more people. Because even when new people come, a generation or two, they also stop having kids.
Do you think what it is in order to have your ideological position cured, right? Because you believe in something probably, right? The alien overlords require like a certain population level to harvest souls from before they bestow upon you the power to control your country. So, okay, this sounds crazy and it's mostly tongue-in-cheek, but it's based on enough vague facts to kind of make sense. Every president except Trump, when they've gone in to the debrief for becoming president, has come out shaken. Right.
Yeah.
Like they've they've been freaked out. And maybe what and a lot of, even Trump has gone in saying like, and now Trump could have just been lying, but a lot of presidents have been like Obama said he'd do it. I think JFK said he'd do it. We're going to tell you about aliens if there's anything. Yeah. And then later presidents said we're going to tell you about JFK, which Trump did sort of, but it didn't really reveal anything. But do you think when they get in there and they're like, oh yeah, because Obama said he'd tell about aliens as well. It's like, you go in there and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to tell them all about the aliens. And then they come to you and they're like, okay, aliens are real. They're in control of Earth. They have cities underground. They were made during the Hoover administration. And they're they're harvesting human souls. It's mostly harmless. But if we don't do what they want, they will abandon us for like China. And then China will be the superpower in the world. Or it'll be even worse, to like kill all humans, like whatever it is, right? Yeah. And that's what shakes them, is like, I have to abandon every principle I had in order to keep my country alive, right? Like that. Because now it could just simply be something like, look, nuclear weapons weren't the end. China, Russia, United States, we have a bomb that could like blow up the Earth, all of us.
Yeah.
We have to play a fake game of like, oh, we're fighting each other, oh no. And we have to make it look good, because if people start fighting too much, one of us is going to set this bomb off.
One of us is going to be a sore loser.
Yeah, and it's just going to set everything off. So that's your responsibility now. Try to sleep any night after you learn that, right? Like, it could just be something like that. Or it could just be like...
Or it could just be, all right, this is what, like, my darkest conspiracy of this is it's, you're elected president, and you get in there, and you're like, all right, it's your briefing. And the guy gives you a briefing, walks up and slaps you in the face.
Yeah.
And you're like, what this? Right, sit down, listen here, chump. We're in charge. Sure, you got elected in president, good for you. If you don't listen to us, we're going to kill you, your family, and everyone you've ever loved.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a little bit of that in there. Well, I'm not sure, but there probably is a little bit of that in there somewhere. But I think there might even be something like... And
if you ever speak about this, we'll also do that.
I think there might be... Yeah, like there could be like a CIA mafia type situation. Mm-hmm. It's not even necessarily the CIA has like alien tech and they're super... It could just be that they're literally a mafia and they're just like, we like our cushy jobs, you're going to keep doing this, or because we've put all our money into assassins, and you're going to keep giving us all our money, and you're going to... It
could literally be like the Praetorian Guard.
Yeah, you're going to bleed the country dry to keep us rich, right? Like, yeah.
I saw this excellent sketch, which is like, well, Emperor, what's his name, is dead. Guess what? You're the new Emperor. It's like, no, leave me alone. No, come back here. And the Praetorian Guard chases after the guy's the new Emperor. You're going to sit on that throne, and you're going to like it.
But it could be something like that. Or it could be like, look, the entire economy is propped up on not letting the medical companies actually publish their research. Or it could be like, something like that. It's just like based on a lie. We could cure every disease, but it would be bad for the economy.
Yeah.
Or it could be...
we have infinite energy.
Yeah, but it'd be bad for the economy.
Yeah.
Or it could even be something as horrible as... it was right there. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the numbers on Russia and China's nuclear weapons, they're pretty solid. We don't actually have any. We don't know how to make them. We've been bluffing for 70 years.
Well, I have a theory, my own weird theory, which is... United States actually did do Star Wars.
Yeah, well, that was I think the whole point of the moon landing was they kind of said we don't need to. That was the theory, right?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we have supremacy in space. If you escalate things, we will have an anti-ICBM shield, and we win.
I think the United States actually has one.
Well, I
don't think it's even a bluff. I think that the United States actually has a Star Wars that can stop a nuclear attack, and they're literally holding it as close to their chest as they can.
Yeah, I actually think... Okay, so my thought, the most likely explanation for UFOs, to me, right? Now, I'm not saying this is the case, but I think the most likely explanation for UFOs is they're actually United States drones that can switch off nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Because there's this weird link between nuclear power plants and UFOs shutting down the nuclear power plants and turning them back on. So I think the United States might have control over nuclear reactions, and they've been testing them just kind of hither and thither.
It could also just be like a controlled electromagnetic field that doesn't actually fry the electronics.
Yeah, but they see... They might have some way to, just like you said, like a Star Wars style shield to stop ICBMs.
Yeah.
And if it came down to it, they would just win. But I don't think that would make the president scared. That'd be like, oh, thank God, right? But
yeah, no, that's an unrelated theory. My theory of why the president's scared is actually it's literally like you do what we say or we'll murder everyone.
There is something interesting.
Like, remember JFK?
Yeah.
He didn't do what we said.
Yeah.
That will happen to you.
But I feel like that would be like becoming a president. You'd sort of expect that. Like you'd be like, I know what I'm signing up for.
Well, maybe you're still optimistic.
There was an interesting...
Or you think you can fight it, and they like maybe you're a president and you think, okay, I'm the one who can fight this. So I'll be the one to be it. And they show pictures of like you sitting on the toilet and your like wife like out in the garden, your kids, and like these are all pictures from scopes.
Yeah.
Or they have like live feed videos of your family.
There was a There was a scientist about a week ago of the recording of this, which will probably be a couple months in the future, or maybe not. But he basically said there's a bunch of scientists disappearing in the last year or so. I'm scared about it, and I think I might be next. And then he killed himself 2 days later.
Yeah, Bob Gimlin released a video on that.
Yeah, so did Sabine Hofstadter. Not about this guy because he died after she released her video on the missing scientist.
Yeah.
But
Bob released his video, and as of recording, making it 2 more disappeared.
But I did see someone do the math, and now I don't trust the numbers, and I didn't have the brain power at the time to do it myself, so I'd have to get the numbers properly. But basically what they did is they said there is, I think they estimated, because it's the estimate's the hard part, but they said there's like 10,000 aviation scientists in the United States.
Yeah.
There's a population of 300 million people in the United States. About, the number's crazy high. I think it might be higher than this, but it's like, there's 50,000 people go missing a year.
Yeah.
Therefore, in an industry with 10,000 people, you'd expect to see 10 people disappear a year. Like, it is, I believe, depending on who you count as an aviation scientist, within the realms of possibility for it to just happen.
Even that math I'm going to call bullshit on the fact that people disappearing is their body is never found again. What's happening to these people?
Well, that's fine.
That's not fine. People shouldn't just disappear as if they never existed.
So there's a common thing in murder mysteries, right? If you're a woman, you'd know this. But there's a common thing in murder mysteries where, like in true crime, they'll say this person walked, they've totally disappeared. They did a full grid search of the forest, never found them, right? And then like 6 years later, 10 feet from the spot where they disappeared, there's like a little divot in the ground and they'll find the skeleton there.
Yeah.
Like a grid search of the forest doesn't actually find anything, and a body can hide in a tiny little like willow bush. Like they can just fall over and disappear for years. Like you can just vanish very easily.
I know about that.
And if you take a map of the United States and you overlay it with the karst landscape, so karst landscape is limestone foundation with acidic water drilling through it, basically. So there's tons of caves and potholes basically everywhere. Yeah. And then you put a map of disappearing peoples. They're almost exactly the same map. So there's probably a lot of people falling in little 2x1 holes that you'd never find because the hole is so small that you don't see it, which is horrifying.
Yeah, but some of the people that disappear, they're like, it's a lifelong smoker.
Yeah.
Who leaves the house without his cigarette or his keys. And like those things.
Yeah, those are a bit weirder, but they're still like, maybe he decided to give up smoking and he was going to take a walk to like get away from it, right? Like there's things that could happen. But it's weird that they all happen together. Yeah. But it could still be like, you know what, I'm going to give up smoking, and in order to have a day off, I just need to get away from the cigarettes as fast as possible. I got to just get out the door. Then you're stumbling, you're weak from lack of nicotine, you fall in a little 2x1 hole, you're gone.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I don't know if you walked around, I don't want to say the location, but the woods where we grew up, across the road there, there's a bunch of cliffs in it.
Yeah.
There's sections where the cliffs have peeled away from each other, and there's like crevices like that.
Yeah.
And I've walked to the edge of those before and looked down, and it's like, if you slipped into that, no one would ever find you. You would just be trapped there. You couldn't get out, and like no one would find you for like 30 years. And then they'd see a skeleton like just in that little crevice. And so then I backed away from the cliff.
Yeah.
I think it's very possible to vanish. That's not to say that, I was just talking about like the aliens eating the human souls.
On the possibility, I recently watched a video. You remember the Bob Gimlin video where he talks about those people in Russia who cut their way out of the tent and like they...
Yeah.
So recently, some more information has been released on that. The Russian government's actually been studying that for a long time. There's a lot about that whole case because it's uncertain.
It's really weird.
So a guy compiled a video. And it's actually, I think, one of the best...
Was that Lemino? He did a really good video on it.
It's quite recently.
Okay, this was an older one.
Yeah. He compiled a video. It's like an hour and a half long video. And he talked about each person who was on the mission, each situation. He explained the... I'm happy Bob actually didn't show this. There's a Yeti picture that came out of this whole thing.
Oh.
And he explained the Yeti picture and how it's actually a person. And he's like, all right. Like, his explanation is like, this is the Yeti picture. It's kind of blurry. It's kind of strange. Now... This is another picture that was taken like basically a little bit before, and it's this guy wearing the snow gear. Now you look at the A picture, you look at the snow gear, you look at all the contrasts. It's that guy. Right. It's just a weird picture. Yeah. It's a weird blurred picture. It's not a Yeti. And so their team went through all the studies, various different things, and he basically went theory to theory to theory and disproved each one in a different way, different studies. And he said the most likely thing that's happened is they set up their tent in an area they thought was safe because this is the science of how you set up the tent to avoid avalanches. These mountains are famous for extremely high winds. This kind of high wind can create situations to cause a slab avalanche. Slab avalanches are like rogue waves. We didn't think they were possible until very recently.
Yeah.
Turns out they're a thing. They happen very fast. They're in very small areas. They're absolutely devastating. These people are in their tent.
Like knocked over the stove or something.
No, they didn't even knock over a stove because they didn't have the stove on that night because it's too windy. So what happens is they're in their tent. The one guy who was clothed, which everyone always thought weird, is he most likely got up to go pee, came back inside, prepared himself a snack because it's late in the evening, just going to do it. And slab avalanche happens, hits everyone, crushes the 2 people, like breaking their ribs, causes 2 other people to get head injuries. And they're like, oh no, it's avalanche. We cut our way outside our tent. We grab as quickly as what clothing we can, but if an avalanche happens, a second one's going to happen. And that's like a very common thing. You need to get out of the area. All right, we'll go over to this tree over here. We can light a fire. They light a fire and it's like, this isn't good enough. We're going to run out of fuel with this fire. So the 3 really injured people, we're going to go dig a shelter for them with the one guy who has clothing, who's in a good condition. He's going to dig a shelter with them. And so they do that, but super windy, super cold. The 2 guys by the fire, they're going to keep the fire going. There's a really tall guy, there's a short guy. The tall guy can pick up the short guy. They can like do the stuff there. And then it's like, all right, this isn't working. The 3 of us, we're going to go back to the tent. We're going to try to recover what gear we can. And if you actually look at how the bars were laid out, the guys lighting the fire, they basically ran out of fuel. They start getting delirious from cold. They're trying to heat themselves. They can no longer feel things, like biting their fingers to try like just feel it. They take off flesh. And they're so cold they start like putting their hands in the fire to warm up, and then they fall into the fire.
So that's where the burns came from.
Those are those 2 guys who burned, and they're by the tree. The people walking back towards the tent, who are all face down towards the tent, that wind at that day, they've observed that area. The wind chill can make it minus 70.
Right, so
You're not wearing proper gear. It's
like.
dark. They die from exposure. And then the people inside the snow shelter who all found by the creek, why they had the broken ribs too, the people fell on one guy.
Because they had already...
Yeah. The one guy who's looking after them is like, shoot, these people are dying. Okay, I'm going to go back to the fire. He goes back to the fire and he sees those 2 guys are dead. And he's like, okay. He takes off their pants. He takes off their clothes. He brings it back to the people in the shelter, and that's why they're wrapped up weirdly.
Right.
He puts it on them. He's like, okay, people, my friends are dead. This sucks. Like, those 2 bodies were laid out respectfully.
Yeah.
And so he's like, my friends suck this, but I'll lay them out. People gain supplies. They'll come back. We just have to wait for them in the shelter. And then they died in the shelter.
Right.
And then why they're like missing the tongue and all that stuff is she fell face down in the water. Her face thawed. Things came and ate it.
Right. So just the theory is just, which, you know, makes just weird random tragedies.
Yeah.
Back to back.
It's basically like super nasty conditions, incredibly powerful cold winds that make the area like colder than anywhere else on Earth in hyper-specific conditions, and a lot of people got injured very quickly.
And that sort of thing, like, you know, what's it called? Roanoke, the lost colony that, like, it was like a British colony that just vanished.
Yeah.
But it's funny, this one's a bit different because basically the people that vanished put up a sign saying, hey, we moved. The First Nation said, yeah, they moved. And then the archaeologists are like, what happened? There's no way to be sure. Then very recently, in the last month or so, I think, archaeologists doing extra digs on the site were like, oh, they just moved.
Yeah. You know the Mary Rose. The tragedy of the Mary Rose.
No.
So it was one of King Henry's ship of the lines. Very famous ship. Is going into battle. And it was a bit stormy water. And it did a full broadside on one side of the ship. It went bloop and sunk.
Just fell over.
Yeah. And there's like the mystery of the Mary Rose, the curse of the Mary Rose. What happened to the Mary Rose? It fell over. It's like, why did so many people drown though on the Mary Rose? Well, here's a thing you don't know about most ships. But we have this stuff called anti-boarding netting, which is you set up netting to stop people from jumping onto your ship from riggings.
No.
All the people drowned because they got stuck in the anti-boarding rigging.
Because they couldn't get back on the ship.
No, they couldn't get out because they could have swum to shore.
Oh,
but they all drowned
right
because they're trapped.
Right.
It's like...
Well, there's a guy, he went to prison for this, because his wife was killed, and, like, his wife was, and her body was found, like, right outside the house. There was no one around except for him. He was at the house. It's like, okay, he killed his wife. She has, like, this concussion, she has, like, scratches on her face and, like, marks on her skull. It's like, he killed her, whatever. And it was, like, for 10 years, he's like, I'm innocent. I didn't do anything. I don't know what happened. And eventually, I think they basically were able to prove it. She was attacked by an owl walking down the stairs, and, like, she slipped and hit her head on the stairs. And, like, and it's just like random coincidences create this, ooh, what happened with this mystery? Ooh.
Yeah, well, actually, back to the Russian people, one of the things like, oh, maybe it was like a radiation weapon, because there's strange amounts of radiations on these people. It's like, no, 2 of those people there, one worked on a secret nuclear weapon. The other was a radiologist whose literal job is to work with radiation. Why it was on everyone is literally they took the clothing off this guy and put it onto other people because he was dead.
Yeah. What if, okay, so maybe, that said, the presidents do get spooked, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think of things that would like, whoa, okay, that are still possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one's actually like totally possible with today's technology. They'd just be really weird and it would like freak you out. Okay. So you go to the presidential debrief, right?
Yeah.
It's like the deep underground, you go super deep underground. And the head of the mysterious behind the scenes debriefer guy's there. He just like turns on the lights. You just see a row of like 50 test tubes. And there's a clone of you in each one. Like, you're just like, what? Like, doesn't matter their reason. You'd just be like, what the?
Yeah.
That is freaky. I don't want to be. But, and that's the reason why Trump was the one president that wasn't freaked out. He's
Or they couldn't match the clothes that look wrong.
Yeah, they're like, these guys aren't orange. Nice try.
And they're all bald.
Yeah. Yeah, I have hair. This can't be a clone. You failed. Did you actually see, it was back when, it was like his first run for president when things were a bit more friendly, you know. He was on Jimmy Kimmel's show, I think. And Jimmy Kimmel went over and like ruffled his hair. And he was like, that's an amazing like toupee or something. And Trump sounded so offended. He's like, it's my hair. But it was like the most genuine thing he'd ever said where he's just like, that's my hair. I think it actually is his hair. I think it's just like weaved somehow into like...
It's his own hair made into like hair plugs or something.
Well, I think it's just like maybe like flipped over, glued down, like you know, got some stuff.
Like the most ridiculous comb over ever.
Yeah, but I think it is his hair.
Yeah.
And I'm not on the train that calls him like a straight out narcissist or anything because I just think it's funny. But he does some stuff that's dodgy, but he does it. But you can't diagnose someone just from a couple clips here and there. There was my psychology class had an example. It was a Canadian prime minister, I believe, who ticked off CBC. So he must have been doing something right.
Yeah.
It was before my time, but he tripped one time on just coming out of his car or something.
Yeah.
And they got a photo of it, like just him falling, like mid fall basically.
Yeah.
And so that was a news story, but it wasn't like, wasn't anything you can do with that. But then every time he slipped, tripped, whatever, because, people, you just do that a couple times. But because you're surrounded by news people all the time, every single time he did it, even if they didn't get a picture, they'd write a story about it and be like, clumsy so-and-so does it again, clumsy so-and-so does it again. And they made this huge kerfuffle. It might have been a president, I don't remember, but they just made this huge story of like, this guy is the most clumsy, inept human being ever because they didn't like him. And you can do that. You can just take snapshots of something everyone does and just like...
You had another reason to get rid of the CBC.
Yeah. Well, if it was American, it wasn't the CBC.
No, I'm willing to believe it's the CBC and that's the reason to get rid of it.
Well, even if it's American, I think we should get rid of the CBC.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case they were influenced. Yeah. Well, I don't want to get rid of the CBC, actually. I just want to defund.
Yes.
Because they have some great casters, they have some great researchers, they have some amazing technical people, and I want them to just prosper, right? Like, I want them to keep doing their job and prosper.
I want the destruction of Marvin's room.
But I don't want them to be getting propped up by the entire population for billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's Marvin's room?
It's R&B for an hour.
Oh,
It plays music I don't like. And there could be better programs on that would be actually interesting. Same with White Coat, Black Art, or whatever I think it's called or something.
I don't listen to CBC. So.
I want that show gone as well. It also plays music I don't like.
See, the solution, well, I mean, if you're paying for CBC, I guess you might as well listen to it. But the solution is just not to listen to it. And then,
But there are some shows on I like.
I don't think I really like any of their stuff.
I like Writers and Company with Eleanor Wachtel. I like Quirks and Quarks.
The only thing I think I like by them is that marketing guy, Under the Influence.
Yeah, and I like Under the Influence.
But he should just start his own YouTube channel. Like,
yeah.
He could... I bet CBC's holding him back. Like, he's so entertaining.
Yes.
And now, on the other hand, I know Yahtzee from formerly The Escapist and now Second Wind, with zero punctuation. The reason he doesn't do his own show is he doesn't want to handle any of the logistics, and he just wants to make his... So all he does is make his videos. Like, that's his only job, basically. So, and he's like, look, I know I make less, and I know I'm stuck with an unpopular company, but, like, I don't have to do any of the other work, and that's worth it for him. Right? Yeah. So that's probably the same with the Under the Influence guy. It's like CBC handles all the logistics and nonsense, and he can just research marketing techniques and talk about them and have a good time. But, like, he could stand on his own for sure. He's quite good.
And I think Dave White could.
Yeah, just like, well, I'm sure, like, there's tons of talent, local talent that here and there that, like, they've got what it takes to start their own news station or something. Yeah. But CBC as a whole, they do so much propaganda.
Yeah, no, and they make me so mad sometimes when I listen to them.
And they do so.
They don't ever, like, we don't have. That's interesting. As much as people give it grief, the UK has their regulation thing that means you have to show both sides of the argument if you want to be radio.
Yeah.
What is that called?
Comcast.
Comcast, yes. As much hate as Comcast gets, Canada doesn't have Comcast rules. And so we literally only ever get one side of a subject. Because Comcast, even if it's like the most propagandized, like, oh yes, I'm for the other side, they still have the rule that you have to have nuance and a person on each side.
Yeah, and CBC. Well, to be clear for CBC though, this isn't left-right with CBC. It's more like whoever's interest they want, because sometimes it's more their
They
often,
serve who pays them. They're mercenaries.
but it's often like elite versus common people's type thing. Like, for instance, they've pushed very hard on like they keep putting out sob stories about foreign students who now no longer are not allowed to work while they're in Canada, and how it's hard for them to make enough money and they have to go to the food bank. And it's like, you weren't allowed to come to Canada unless you could prove that you could actually pay for everything without working.
Yeah.
So you already broke the rules once, and now CBC's writing this, and then CBC will also ignore everyone else that is suffering.
Yeah.
It was it's something I always forget because it's so easy to forget. But when, it's good to be generous and kind to people, right? But, and so like you see a beggar, you give him $10 or something, right? But it's so easy to get into the only people you care about are the beggars, and someone steals and you offer them mercy, like you're like, all right, I believe you'll do better in the future. But it's so easy to get caught into, you only help the beggars and thieves and criminals.
Yes.
And it's like, wait, no, you have to also be kind and merciful to the law-abiding regular citizens of your country. You have to give them reasons to keep going on, because then what happens is the only way to get ahead in your country
is to be a beggar or a thief.
And then your country just becomes more and more beggars and thieves until you can't afford to pay all the beggars and thieves. And there's like one guy who's Boxer from Animal Farm. He's the only guy that's there, and he's just working as hard as he can.
And then he dies, and you turn him into glue.
Yeah, and then you
communist scum.
And then you have nothing left. It's gone. Yeah, well, I think that's probably, it wasn't exactly a high note, but I think I've got to head to work soon. So
okay.
So we should...
just dwell on my hatred of communism and also socialism.
But, well, is there a positive we can throw in there, maybe? Turn it around a little bit?
Well, apparently the alien dossier is going to be released soon, of the actual information with the alien.
Didn't they just release some stuff like 3 days ago?
Yeah, but they didn't release all of it.
So, if you wanted to disclose to the public, right, that you have tons of information on aliens, okay? Why are you acting like a video game company that's slowly teasing
patch notes? Releasing patch notes.
Well, but it's more like, it's like, I'll give you a glimpse of it, and then I'll get you the really good stuff. Like, Breath of the Wild, right? Mm-hmm. No, it was Tears of the Kingdom. They showed like a little bit here and a little bit there, and then they showed the builder power, and everyone's like, whoa, what the, like, it totally recontextualized everything, right? Yeah. Why are they doing that with the aliens, where it's like, just show us the bodies to start with, or like, you start with the good stuff, or I don't believe you have it, right? Like, yeah. Although I saw, it's the creepy, I don't know what it is. It might just be like a camera thing, but it's like a little drone or something flying through, it's on a heat camera. It's a little drone flying through a bunch of windmills, and it's like the creepiest foot. It's really cool. It's like, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen any of this alien talking stuff.
Okay, because it's like,